that has absolutely changed everything for us. We get to celebrate him this morning. We can't take that lightly. That's a big deal. Kids, children's church. Oh, yeah. Adults in here. Hey. Oh, man. You guys want to brighten the lights a little bit? We got to see who's sleeping. Luke 19, if you got a Bible. So we're going to start a new series over the next couple weeks, just kind of talking about the church that we want to be. We're calling it Family Values, and just kind of talking about, hey, what are some of the things that as a church we want to focus on? What are some of the things that matter? And so, yeah, we're going to start that today. The thing with every family is that every family has values. They may not be up on the wall. They may not be something that's, but it's probably something that, you hear all the time, or it's something that, gets said a lot. Just curious, do you guys have any family values, things you like poured into your kids, things like that? You just say it a lot. You're looking, do you have one? No? You don't have any family values? Yeah. What? They're not repeatable? Is that what? Yeah. But we have things we communicate, right, within our home, and we have different things we say, like, hey, guess what? We do hard things, or we don't let little things ruin a big day. And I'm writing a children's book on someday on that one. But we do. We have these things that we communicate in our home, whether they're spoken or they're just lived. We have these values that that come out, and again, you don't always see them on the wall. Maybe they're not communicated, but there's this way in which we live. It's a culture that we are creating. And here's the thing: value shapes culture. What you value shapes culture. And they answer questions like, hey, what matters the most? What kind of people are we becoming? And so the same things that we do in our family, it's very similar to what we do in the church. A church isn't just a place you attend. It's a family. It's a body that you belong to. And over time, every church, it develops a culture, not just by what we say, but what we actually do. So again, for the next couple weeks, we're gonna talk about the kind of church that we want to be, and not just what we believe, but how we want to work that belief out. Because here's the thing: if we don't define our values intentionally, they are going to form unintentionally. And let me say this clearly: like, we're not trying in all of this. We're not trying to become something trendy. We're not trying to copy another church. We just want to be a church that doesn't overcomplicate things. We simply want to find practical ways to reflect the heart of Jesus. And so when you look at the life of Jesus, you don't just see a theology, you see a pattern. You see how he treated people, who he moved towards, and what he prioritized. So here's the thing: if we're going to be his church, we have to do those same types of things should mark us. So here's the first value: radical redemption. Radical redemption. What do we mean when we say radical redemption? Well, we mean that we want to be a church that offers Christ to people in a way that brings eternal hope and healing by following Jesus into the real world and providing a witness to real people. That means we don't avoid brokenness. We don't wait for people to clean themselves up, and we don't just talk about hope. We deliver it. And again, this isn't our idea. This is exactly what Jesus did. And in Luke 19, we see this moment where Jesus shows us exactly what radical redemption looks like. There's a man we're going to read about today. I'm sure if you've been in church for a while, you learned his little song. He's a wee little man. At some point, we should probably sing that today, but we won't do it yet. I don't know. We'll see if we work it in. That'll be our closer. But there's this guy, and he's been rejected. What'd you say? Wait for the kids to come back. They may not even know it. They don't know this stuff sometimes nowadays. Back in my day, there's a man who encounters Jesus. His name's Zacchaeus, completely rejected. He's written off by his community, and there's a crowd all around Jesus, and yet he sees the one guy that's hanging out in the tree. And that's what we're going to see is this. Jesus doesn't just address the crowd. He stops for the one climbing the tree. If we're going to be the kind of church that Jesus builds, we have to care about the people that he stops for. So let's read the story of Zacchaeus here in chapter 19, verse 1. It says that Jesus entered Jericho and he was passing through. So he's in a big old city. And there was a man named Zacchaeus who was the chief tax collector. And he was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was not able because of the crowd, since he was a short man. So running ahead, he climbed up to a sycamore tree to see Jesus, since he was about to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and he said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, because today it is necessary for me to stay at your house." So he quickly came down and he welcomed him joyfully. All who saw it began to complain, "He's going to go stay with a sinful man." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, I'll give half of my possessions to the poor. Lord, and if I have extorted anything from anyone, I'll pay back 4 times as much." Today salvation has come to this house, Jesus told him, because he too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save the lost. Look at how this story begins. Again, Jesus is walking into Jericho, one of the bigger cities in the area, and it's not some little small village. He's passing through, and then he meets this man named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich, and he was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was not able because of the crowd. He was a short man. So running ahead, he climbed up a sycamore tree to see Jesus, since he was about to pass that way. So Luke introduces us to sinners as he can. Says he's rich, and that wealth came from exploiting others, more than likely. So he's wealthy, he's powerful. Luke also tells us he's a short king. I was looking this up. The average man back in this era, Zacchaeus is short. Like, he's in the 4-foot range, right? Like, this is a little dude. By today's standards, we're in here, right? And then we read and we figure out that he's blocked by the crowd. Not just physically, socially, spiritually. Nobody wants anything to do with Zacchaeus. And here's what we see in Luke's account. He isn't just overlooked, he's rejected. And here's what we see in Luke's account. He isn't just overlooked, he's rejected. This is the kind of man that people, they look at and they say, man, he chose that life. He deserves where he is. But notice this, he was trying to see who Jesus was, right? Like, he's curious. There's something stirring in him. And I want you to notice something here. Before there is ever repentance, before there is a change in someone's life, there is curiosity and there's hunger. So because he can't see Jesus through the crowd, what's he do? He runs and he climbs a tree, a sycamore tree, for the Lord he wanted to see. And now this, grown men, here's the thing you got to catch. Grown men in that culture, you don't run. I like their culture. You don't run. You don't. Respected men didn't climb trees. This is undignified. This is desperate. This is someone who doesn't care how he looks anymore. He just wants to see Jesus. There's a whole crowd around, but only one man climbs a tree. That's the one that stands out. I'm sure at face value, this sounds a lot like curiosity. I just want to see who Jesus is. What's the fuss all about? Again, verse 3 says he was just trying to see Jesus. But when you look at his actions, he runs on ahead, and that was undignified for a man of his status. You don't do that. He climbs the tree, humbling himself because he wants to see Jesus. He doesn't care what anybody else thinks. And then he positions himself intentionally. That's not casual curiosity anymore. It's hunger. Curiosity asks, who is this guy? Hunger says, I have to see him. So Zacchaeus crosses that line. Luke doesn't say that Zacchaeus is repenting yet, right? Like, he doesn't say that he believes yet. He doesn't even say he understands who Jesus is. But he does show us something important. Spiritual hunger shows up before spiritual clarity. Luke tells us Zacchaeus wanted to see who Jesus was. And again, it sounds like curiosity at first. But curiosity does not make a grown man do these kinds of things. It doesn't make a wealthy man climb a tree. You don't climb trees for things that you're casually interested in. So he's not just a curious spectator. He is a seeker in motion, and that's exactly the kind of person that Jesus stops for. And this is where we have to be honest with ourselves. Because crowds are easy to see. Hunger is it's harder to notice. I mean, last week we had Easter. And man, tons of people were here. This is the biggest service we'd had, at least since I'd been here. And, we were packed. And it was pretty awesome to be with a bunch of people that wanted to celebrate Jesus' resurrection and worship. I love that. Last week we had a crowd. But that crowd was made up of individuals, right? Like everybody came in here with a story. Everybody came in here with, just this with a story. And I know I didn't get to meet everybody that was here. But every once in a while there's someone in the crowd who pops out into your life, right? They're asking questions no one else is asking. They're leaning in when others are leaning back. They don't have it all together, but they want something real. That's the person that's climbing the tree. You ever run into someone like that? Like maybe it's that coworker and all of a sudden they just start asking questions or they start opening up about their marriage and just where they're struggling. That neighbor who they just keep bringing up spiritual things. That one that's maybe just a little bit awkward, a little bit messy. They just keep showing up. You look at what's going on there. And again, not everyone in the crowd is seeking. Some of them really are just curious. Jesus there's a lot of hype here, right? Big old city. Everybody's out in the streets because they want to see the miracle worker. They want to see the one that fed, the thousands and all this stuff. He creates a following. But there's one in the crowd that stands out. The one that is climbing. So here's the thing. If we're going to be a church of radical redemption, we can't just focus on the crowds. We have to notice who's climbing the tree. We have to find ways to help them explore who Jesus is, and we have to find ways to guide them towards Jesus as they begin to hunger for him. And in order to do this, we have to care about the individual. We have to look for those who are in need of what Jesus brings to the table. So here's a question for you. Who in your life right now is climbing the tree? Like, think about that for a moment. Can you think of somebody? Like someone who's just, they're reaching, they're searching, they're quietly hungry for something more? Because the tension in this passage, when you go back and you read through this, it's easy to overlook that person. You're busy and you're doing things, and it's really hard sometimes to stop for that person. We don't always, and it's hard because, they don't always look polished. They don't always look church ready. They may look like Zacchaeus, someone that people even try to avoid. But what if the person everyone else writes off as the one Jesus wants you to stop for? What kind of people is God calling us to be? People that look like him. People that live like him. And this is exactly what Jesus does. He wants us to be the kind of people that notice what others miss. Because radical redemption, when we talk about that, it begins when someone sees someone climbing the tree and they refuse to ignore them. They don't leave them where they're at. And what we're about to see next is that Jesus doesn't just notice Zacchaeus, he moves towards him. Here's the thing, for us, radical redemption doesn't mean we don't wait until someone has it all figured out. We pay attention when curiosity starts turning into hunger. Because that's when that's where Jesus often steps in. Look at how Jesus moves forward here. We've already seen, there's a big crowd, there's one man climbing a tree, but here's the amazing part of this story. Jesus didn't just notice him, he moves towards him. Again, let's go back to this. It says, when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and he said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, because today it is necessary for me to stay at your house. So he quickly came down and welcomed him joyfully. All who saw it began to complain, he's going to stay with a sinful man. Man, I love this so much. Because here's Jesus, and he looks up and he calls him by name. In a crowd full of people, right? Jesus locks in on one person. And he knows his name, Zacchaeus. Don't miss that. Right? Like, can you imagine this? You're in the tree, right? And you're just trying to catch a glimpse of what's going on, and all of a sudden Jesus stops and he looks up at you and he calls you by your name. I mean, what can you imagine what's going on in this little guy's mind? Like, what did it's kind of like when the teacher calls you out or something, oh, what did I do wrong, or maybe just, how does this guy know me? Whatever it is, look, this is not distant. This is not generic. This is personal. This is the God of the universe interacting with someone he wants to engage with personally. Zacchaeus is trying to figure out who Jesus is. And Jesus already knows all there is to know about this wee little man. And then Jesus says something out of nowhere. He says, Zacchaeus, I got to go over to your house. I must stay at your house. Notice what Jesus does. He does not say, Zacchaeus, you need to get yourself cleaned up. And if you get yourself cleaned up, then we can hang out. It's nothing like that. Jesus invites himself into Zacchaeus' world. Notice what he says there. He says, it is necessary for me to stay at your house. Necessary. I got to go spend some time with you. This was not random. This is a mission, right? Like Jesus says, this is why I came. This is what I'm here for. There's a big crowd. Everybody's coming to see me and check me out, but I'm here for the individual. I'm here for Zacchaeus. Here's a core truth. This is what I want you to hear this morning. Radical redemption is intentional pursuit, not passive availability. Think about that. Jesus does not wait at a distance. He steps into Zacchaeus' life. He becomes intentional. It's one thing to wave at someone across the room. Like, we're really good at this at church, right? Like, we're going to get done here in a few minutes, and we're all going to check in, and we're all going to, shake our hands, give our fist bumps, and do our thing, and then we're going to be out the door to go live our week. It's another thing, though, to come and sit at somebody's table, to buy them lunch. But seriously, to invest and to get involved in somebody's life. Here's what a meal means. When Jesus says, I need to come down, I'm going to go sit at your table. A meal means time. A meal means relationship. A meal means proximity, right? Like, I'm coming to get close with you. I want to know who you are. We're going to have a talk. That's what, you don't just accidentally end up at someone's house. You choose it. This is what Jesus does. He doesn't just preach to crowds. He pursues people. And all of this is so crazy because Jesus begins to engage with Zacchaeus, and all who see it begin to complain. And of course they do, because offering grace to messy people, it's always going to bother people who prefer distance, and it just is. It says all who saw it began to complain. He's gone to stay with a sinful man. Man, I am so glad that Jesus was more interested in reaching sinners than impressing the crowd. That he shows us what matters most. As a church, it's one thing to say that we care about lost people. It's another thing to sit in their space, to be willing to enter the mess, and to build real relationships. Radical redemption means we don't avoid people who are far from God. We don't require them to clean up first, and we don't keep our distance to stay comfortable. If we want to live like Jesus, we have to make people matter. People with names, not just faces that come in and out the door. We have to be willing to sit down with them, and we can't be afraid to engage those who are trying to climb out of their own mess. I mean, this is why the crowd matters. This is why, crowds matter. Because in every crowd are people trying to climb out of their mess. And it's our job, whatever crowd we find ourselves in. Monday morning, you're going to go to work. You got a crowd. Whatever crowd you find yourself in, there are people, they're in a mess and they're trying to get themselves out. And so what does it look like to be bold enough to move towards them? I mean, think about it. Who is God asking you not just to notice, but to move towards? To step into their world, to invite them to coffee or just to spend some time with them. It's not enough to see the one in the tree. At some point, you have to sit at the table. Radical redemption does not stay at a distance. It pulls up a chair. That's what this is, guys. That's what matters. And what we're about to see next is that when Jesus steps into someone's life, it's real life change that happens. Radical redemption produces real change. As Jesus moves towards Zacchaeus, he enters his home. He sits at his table. And now see what happens when grace gets personal. Verse 8, it says, "But Zacchaeus stood there, and he said to the Lord, 'Look, I'll give half of my possessions to the poor. Lord, if I have extorted anything from anyone, I'm going to pay back 4 times as much.' Jesus hears all this. He says, 'Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham.'" Whew, something just changed. And notice, Luke does not just describe the conversation. He doesn't just describe the conversation at the table. We don't hear the teachings. We don't know what Jesus said here, do we? We don't. We don't see the moment or the little, that moment that clicks for Zacchaeus. We don't see any of that. But what we do see is the result. Zacchaeus stands up and he makes this declaration. I'm going to give half of my possessions to the poor, and then I'm going to pay 4 times back. Anybody that I've robbed, anybody I've extorted, anybody I've taken advantage of, I'm giving them 4 times what I originally took. You got to understand, this is radical. Because under Jewish law, repayment, if you look in Leviticus chapter 6, repayment was normally 20%. Okay, you give 20% back if you did something like this. But in extreme cases, in Exodus 22, the command was a 4-fold repayment. So what's Zacchaeus doing? He just chose the highest level. And then he goes beyond it because he's going to go take care of the poor, on top of everything else. And what you have to see here, this is not forced. This is not negotiated. This is not some requirement Jesus makes, right? It's not like, hey, sign on the dotted line. I want you to go out and you go and, if you'll just give 4 times your total savings account, then, we're going to make everything okay. That's not what it is. This is overflow. When grace hits the heart, it shows up in the life. It shows up in your life. Notice the order here. Jesus offers presence, right? There's a connection. And then Zacchaeus experiences grace. And what happens next? Transformation follows. Zacchaeus isn't changing to earn acceptance. He's not trying to be good enough. He's changing because he's been accepted and he's been redeemed. Look, we don't change to be loved. We change because we are loved. Grace does not ignore sin. It transforms the sinner. And Jesus, he didn't demand change, but his presence produced it. You can fake behavior for a while. You can modify habits temporarily. Again, you can try to be a better person. But when something actually changes in your heart, man, that shows up in what you value. Zacchaeus, he used to use people to gain money, and now he's using his money to restore people. That is radical. That is life change. That is not somebody just trying to be a better person. It's radical redemption. And this is what we dream about. Again, that this church would just be filled with. Not surface level change, not image management, but real transformation. So what do we have to ask? We have to ask, are we settling for appearances or are we expecting transformation? It's worth asking today. I mean, think about it even personally. How has Jesus changed your heart? How has he changed what you value and what you care about? How has he changed your generosity, your relationships, your integrity, your priorities? How has radical redemption changed your life? Has it? Or are you just the same person, just trying to be a better version, 2.0? Because as a church, listen, we don't just want to gather people. I've done this game for a while. That's not hard, honestly. We want to see lives changed. We want to be surrounded with people who all realize the need for God's grace and redemption in their lives. Who can fully identify with Zacchaeus when he hears Jesus say, today salvation has come to this house. Zacchaeus' transformation here, it's real. Jesus confirms it. This is not hype. This is not emotion. This is salvation. Jesus says, because he too is a son of Abraham. What just happened there? Zacchaeus is no longer labeled by his sin. That's what the crowd saw, right? Jesus is going to go sit down with a sinful man. Jesus says, no, this is a son of Abraham. He's restored and he's given a new identity. That's what radical redemption does. Radical redemption does not just forgive your past, it restores your identity. When Jesus steps into a life, he doesn't leave it the same. To wrap this passage up, Jesus, he's going to tell us something incredibly important. And none of this, this was not just about Zacchaeus. This is why he came. And this is where he invites us to join in. The final thing I just want to look at here is the mission of Jesus, which is now ours. So Zacchaeus has been changed. Life looks a whole lot different than it did a few minutes ago. Jesus declares salvation over his house, and now Jesus zooms out and he says, hey, guess what? This was not random. He says, for the Son of Man has come to seek and to save the lost. This is one of the clearest mission statements that Jesus gives in the Gospels. You want to know what I came here for, guys? To seek and to save the lost. This is what it's all about. Why did he come? Not just to teach, not just to perform miracles, not just to gather crowds, to seek and to save the lost. Think about what he's saying. Seek, what does that mean? Intentional pursuit. I'm on the hunt. Save, to rescue, to restore, to redeem. And who is it? The lost. Not just wandering people, but people that are spiritually separated from God, that don't have a connection to him, that aren't changed. And don't miss this. Jesus doesn't say the lost should come find him. What does he say? He says that he came to find them. I came to seek and I came to save. Jesus is not passive about people. He pursues them. And this is why he stopped at that tree. This is why he calls Zacchaeus by name. This is why he went to his house. Because Zacchaeus wasn't an interruption. He was the mission. And if that's why Jesus came, then that's what has to shape who we are. You see, we don't just admire Jesus' mission, we adopt it. So what does that mean for us? What does it mean? It means we become the kind of church that notices what others miss. Where we're actually paying attention to the ones climbing the tree, and we're willing to pull up a chair. Not just seeing crowds, but seeing hunger and need. It means we don't keep our distance, but we have to move towards people. We sit at tables, we step into lives, and we don't wait for people to come to us. We go to them. Also means we lead with grace. Again, not requiring people to fix themselves first or any of that. We just trust that when Jesus gets hold of a life, he actually changes it. It means that we actually expect that to happen. Again, not surface level, but real transformation. We notice that one climbing the tree. We move towards them. We trust Jesus to change them because that's exactly what he did for us. And again, this is not about church as a whole. This is about you. This is about us as a body, as individuals. It's about us. Who is your Zacchaeus? Who is climbing a tree there right in front of you? Who in your life right now is searching? They're hurting, they're reaching, they're climbing. And what would it look like this week? What would it look like to start the conversation? To make the invitation, to sit at the table, or to step into their world? Not just to try to bring them to church, but to try to bring them to Jesus. To share the hope that is within you in a way that they don't have to go anywhere because you're going to them. We spend a lot of time as elders just praying through this and talking about, God, where are you taking us? I mean, what are you calling us to be? How is it that you want us to be different? And this is one of the key things that we just can't escape, is that Christ has called us to make people matter and to live for radical redemption. It's everything because Jesus sought us, he saved us, and now we get to go and do the same. Radical redemption found you, and now it's sending you. We're not just a gathering of believers. We are people sent on mission. We don't just believe in the mission of Jesus. We continue it. Here's the thing. It is really easy for churches to drift. To go from seeking to settling. From mission to maintenance, and from reaching to comfort. But a church that stops seeking the lost has stopped reflecting Jesus. The mission of Jesus is not something we admire, it's something that we embody. It's just who we are. I have a pretty vivid imagination, and I'm just trying to imagine this wee little man sitting there at the table and hearing Jesus say, today salvation has come to this house. It says, Zacchaeus jumps up, he stands up to proclaim, man, my life has changed. And guess what? Man, he's still doing that today. He hasn't stopped. There are people in this room right now. Maybe you don't have it all figured out. You may not even know exactly what you believe, but you're curious. And maybe it's more than curiosity now. Maybe it's hunger. And just like Zacchaeus, Jesus isn't waiting for you to clean everything up. He's moving towards you. And he doesn't say, hey, fix your life and then come to me. He says, let me come into your life and I'm going to change it. So today, if you know that you're far from God, hey, this is your moment. Not to perform, not to pretend, but to respond. Right now, listen, in the quiet of all of this and everything going on, you can cry out to a holy God, the man Jesus Christ, who came to seek and to save the lost, who died and rose again, and you can cry out to him and just let him know that you need him in your life. That you believe that he came for you and that, his salvation is enough. You can ask him to forgive and to change you. And you can begin to follow him. And in doing that, guess what? It's a start into a brand new life. It makes all the difference. And for those of us who are already living, we're following after Jesus, and we've given our lives to him, we've already experienced that kind of radical redemption, we come to the table. Isn't it interesting, Zacchaeus' whole story? We think about the little tree, but what's the heart of this story? It's that table that Jesus comes and he sits around. In a moment, we're going to come to the table. And we remember the moment that Jesus stepped into our story. Jesus says, I'm coming to your house, and everything changes there. Everything changes at the table. The gospel's a table story. Jesus doesn't just save us from a distance. He invites us into a relationship. And in a moment, we're gonna meet with Jesus at his table. We're gonna take communion together. And as you take this, ask yourself, who was I before Jesus found me? And who's he sending me to now? Because radical redemption, it doesn't stop with you. It doesn't stop with me. It's meant to reach past you, through you. Jesus is still seeking. He's still saving. He's still stepping into lives. And now he sends us to do the same. What do we value as a church? We value radical redemption because we have been radically saved and we exist to get to see others live the same. Jesus, we come before you right now. God, I just thank you that you are willing to seek out the ones that don't seem like they matter, the ones that everybody else is against. Your grace is so great. And you have the ability to cover us in your salvation in ways that, God, it just blows my mind. Father, as we come to the table today and we remember your body that was given and your blood that was spilt, and God, we're focused in on the fact that you came back and you, on 3 days later, you rose from the dead. God, I pray that we would just live in that new life that you've given us today. And that we would be about your mission. We wouldn't waste our lives on things that don't matter. But God, we would be focused on the things that do. Lord, as we take time now, would you just move in our lives? Would you speak as only you can speak, and would you work as only you can work? Thank you for seeing us when we were climbing that tree. Father, if there's anyone here that doesn't know you and doesn't know the life-changing power that happens from your salvation, your resurrection, here in a moment, God, I pray they would seek somebody in the corners of this room to pray with, and God, that they would receive today that salvation that changes everything. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks. So we're now going to move into our time of communion and prayer. Caleb and Mark, if you guys will come on up and serve the elements. I love that phrase where, Jesus is, he calls Zacchaeus, hey, come on down because it is necessary that I come to your house today and stay with you. It is necessary that I come and spend time with you. And just like that, he's around the table with his 12 disciples, spending time with them. And he gives us this process, this opportunity to do the same with him today. It says that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there. He's here with us right now. We have a table. We have the Lord's Supper. And he says, come, spend some time with me. So when you're ready, come and grab the elements, spend some time with Jesus. We'll bless them and take them together. If you'd like somebody to pray with you, either in preparation for the Lord's Supper or just for anything, we're going to have our, people that'll be at each corner to be praying over you that time.